What's up, everybody? It's the B-Hole, episode number 5, coming at you guys live from Phnom Penh, Cambodia, at a healthy 7:27 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, everybody. So, yeah, man, had this Christmas last weekend. Did not expect to do shit for Christmas, by the way. Didn't expect to do a damn thing. Had plans to do nothing, which I was kind of looking forward to. But what ended up happening is a client of mine actually invited me out for some drinks here in Phnom Penh with some new people. I had no idea who they were. One of these guys is like a doctor, and I met all these pretty interesting people, and then she ended up inviting me to go to Koh Rong. And Koh Rong, for any of you who don't know, is like an island here off the coast of Cambodia, and it's pretty popular, and they're having some kind of New Year's party there. I've never been to Koh Rong before, but it's pretty sweet that I got invited, and she wants to share a tent with me. So, I think it'll be a pretty good weekend for me. I'm pretty sure it's going to be an awesome weekend. So, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, man. But I know here, like, it's kind of funny for, like, the holidays. They always have these dinners for everybody. And I remember on Thanksgiving, Jay, wasn't it like $58 for a plate of? Yeah, it was like, yeah. So Jay actually invited myself and my ex-girlfriend over at the time, or my girlfriend at the time over, and for Thanksgiving dinner, which was very nice of him. And he was telling me, man, that this place, I think it's called Soka Hotel or somewhere like that. They had Thanksgiving dinner, man, $58 a plate, no mashed potatoes. Now in America, fucking has to be locked up for that shit. All right, you have mashed potatoes with your fucking Thanksgiving meal, and then they have Christmas dinner as well. It's just not the same, man. It's just not the same. Like it doesn't feel like the holidays, man. Like now, this is like my second holiday season in Cambodia, and last year I was in a much different social circle. I was in a way different social circle last year. This year, I don't really have a social circle anymore. I don't really have a whole lot of friends that I chill with anymore, which, is fine with me, man. But the fuck was I gonna say? Yeah, like people are asking me like, oh, what are you doing for the holidays? Do you have your holiday spirit? And to be quite honest, when it's 90 fucking degree, well, I'm sorry, Celsius. What is that? Like 30. I don't know, it's like 30 degrees out here, Celsius, like 85, 90 degrees Fahrenheit here. Like it's palm trees everywhere, a bunch of people speaking Khmer. It's kind of hard to get into the Christmas spirit, but yeah, like even back home, we Christmas was always like, it was more work. It was more work because it's like, I never enjoy like family get-togethers, like the family reunions as much. I always found them to be more stress than relaxation because people in the family, like they want everything to be a certain way. Everything has to be like in a set, orderly way. Everything has to be scheduled and mapped out and fucking on like a grid and shit as far as the plan for the day goes. And I just can't get into it, man. And it was always stress. And my parents would usually just get stressed out and bitch and complain because things didn't go the way they planned for the holidays. And I feel like for the holidays, man, or even on vacation, like I see motherfuckers out here on vacation, like backpackers and just couples passing through Cambodia that are from other parts of the world. And sometimes I do meet these people, and it really seems like almost like every time they spend more time fucking around and organizing and packing and arguing and fighting and complaining than they do actually just chilling, which was their original goal anyway, man. Just an observation. So, anyways, man, I was actually talking to my dad yesterday and my brother as well, and it was pretty refreshing to talk to my dad, man. It's still nice to know that he cares about me, and I'm sure it's nice for him to know I care about him. So shout out to the dads all across the world. I'm definitely thankful that I have a dad that's always been, I don't know who he is as a husband. He's not a husband anymore, but I don't know who he was as a husband. I don't know how he is as a manager or a boss or whatever he does at his job. But as a father, the man is outstanding. The man has helped me become who I am. So I definitely want to give a shout out to my dad. It was great talking to him yesterday, and we were talking about some things that I miss about home, and people ask me that too, because like you live in a city full of fucking immigrants and expats here, so people ask, oh, what, like, what do you miss about home? And honestly, right now, I'd have to say one of the biggest things I miss, besides my family, of course, is like autumn. And like, autumn's always been my favorite season. And I miss that. I miss like that cold sky. I miss the smell of those fucking like dead, wet leaves. I just remember that, man. But it's again like it's damn near impossible to get to the swing of things here because it's summer year round here. It's always summer here, man. And Cambodia for me, a lot of the time is a very trying, testing place to live, man, because it's so fucking noisy all the time. It's relentlessly hot. Like pretty much always just relentlessly hot. The people are oblivious. A lot of them just it seems like they have zero fucking idea as to what's going on around them. And I'm not gonna lie, a lot of times I find myself being very annoyed by Cambodian people. Very like highly annoyed, but it's this is where I live, and fuck it, like if I don't like it, then I should get the hell out, right? So I can't say shit about it, Yeah, so my weekend was interesting. It was definitely cool to make some new friends and get invited to this island party, I guess. So, anyways, I want to talk about. I was kind of going through my notes last night, and I was like, kind of checking some shit out. I did this speech. I think I brought this up before. Like, I did this thing. It's called Nerd Night. There's an event here in town called Nerd Night, and what it is, it's like this rapid fire like slideshow presentation thing, and you talk. It's like 20 slides, and each slide is 20 seconds each, so it's 6 minutes, 40 seconds total. And I've done 4. I'm getting ready to do my 5th, but my last one I talked about growing up in the Shenandoah Valley. The Shenandoah Valley is like a valley in northern Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains. There's a lot of history there naturally. And I was just thinking about growing up there, man, and like some of the shit that I used to want to do when I was like, I remember one of my biggest desires as a teenager and a young man was I wanted to be a police officer. I remember this. I was fucking obsessed with being a cop, and I was trying to I was laying in bed last night, trying I couldn't fucking sleep, so I was thinking all night. But I was trying to think like, when was that defining moment when I was like, yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be a cop. I still cannot fucking think of what moment that was when I thought it would be a good idea to try to be a police officer. But I was like 18 years old. And I remember at the time I was very overweight. I was upwards of like 225, 235 pounds, which is like 105, 107 if you're talking kilos. And needless to say, I was a fucking butterball, dude. But I was a strong kid. Like, I could still lift weights and shit. I was strong. But then again, I mean, if you look at cops, especially in the States or even here too, they're fucking fat themselves. And so I remember like in high school, I would start, it was very strange, man. Like I would start not assuming the role of a cop, but like I started to almost like take on this identity as like, yes, I'm going to be a police officer. This is my journey. This is my destiny. Like, I'm going to fucking put on this uniform one day and this gun and this badge, and I'm going to serve and protect. And I live in this small little fucking town in Virginia. It's like a population of maybe 20, 25,000 people tops. And I have all these big dreams, and which is fucking retarded in hindsight, dude. Like, to be a police officer now, like after I've done what I've done and I've seen what I've seen in my life, thinking that I'd spend the rest of my days doing paperwork in some, fucking, what is that? What is it? Where like Hodunk or whatever, like fucking shit town, in Shitchester, Virginia, and doing paperwork and all that type of shit. I remember that. Like I had no business even thinking I was going to be a cop too, because at the time I was getting in fights in high school. I was, not on a regular basis or anything, but I had been in several, like confrontations and altercations in high school, and not only that, but like I I would get in trouble for my behavior. Like I remember my senior year in high school at this school. It was called Millbrook High School in Winchester, Virginia. Right there off of Route 7. If you guys want to check it out. It's a fucking mixed school. It's just like a factory made, just another fucking pumped out school. But I remember I used to like really have serious issues with the teachers, man. Like I did not like them telling me what to do or like what to say or how to do this and that. So I remember in my senior year, I got called to the school board, like the county school board, and they said, look man, you're fucking up too much. We're going to expel you. If there's another incident with your behavior, like if I get called to the principal's office, or if there's another incident where like I cuss or use profanity or disobey or I hit something or I get upset or whatever, then anything like that, any kind of infraction, then I'm going to be expelled from school, which therefore means, well, they said a full year, which means that I have to take a year off of school or maybe possibly get my GED. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, so needless to say, the second half of my senior year in high school, I was pretty under the radar. I figured, look, man, I only have like 5-6 more months of this bullshit. Stick it out, do it. Don't fuck with anybody. Don't start any problems. And I didn't. But I was smoking like a lot of weed. I remember I was in high school and I would occasionally, like during high school and also after, like for a couple years after, I would do these things called police ride-alongs for the Winchester PD. And a police ride-along is when you get to sit in the front seat of the police car with the cop, and you get to join them on their daily duties. So I remember the first time I did it was with this guy. His name was Corporal Cutter. Corporal Cutter. I remember this guy. He had a fucking like the most cheesy flat top haircut. Like just imagine your typical American fucking cop. All right. I mean, if you took one of those, what are those like one of those little things that you use on the construction site to make sure that the thing is level, like one of those leveler measures thing. Like if you put that shit on his flat top, the fucking bubble was right in the middle, man. That was an impressively flat top, actually. Corporal Cutter, I'll never forget that dude. And yeah, I remember, man, that first time we were just cruising around, and it finally dawned on me, because I thought, like, being a cop, of course, like a lot of people do, is like, oh, I'm gonna constantly be out looking for shit, and I quickly realized that these cops, like, kind of lazy. Like they weren't too what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't too outgoing, I guess. They weren't too outgoing with their duties, and like when something did happen, it was just some bullshit, like a traffic infraction or whatever. But so my first day with him was pretty fucking boring, but it was kind of cool to be in a police car. And then I signed up to do it again, and it was like maybe a month or so later, and I got with this dude. His name was Officer Schillenberg. His name was Ron Schillenberg, and I remember this dude. He was such a fucking redneck, man. I love that guy. He was hilarious. Bald-headed, big cheesy porno cop mustache, like the stereotypical American cop. He was that guy. Fat as fuck, health issues. Hilarious southern accent. Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And I remember we were going through this neighborhood of town. It was like the hood. It was like this little square mile area of where it was like mostly black people, but there was like trailer trash there too. Because Winchester, for the most part, was like trailer trash people. It was like redneck country town. And I remember we used to go in there, and he used to brag about all the black chicks he fucked. It was like so fucking stupid. We're like, yeah, man, I fucking split a black oak here, man. It's just like, dude, this is like, you're a fucking cop, man. And but then it also dawned on me too, like cops are just people too. And like he was telling me about like he's supposed to be this fucking professional, badge wearing, all buttoned up, suited and booted, ready to go. And he's talking to me about how many like chicks he's banged out in the back of his car or whatever. But it was cool. I mean, we were walking the train tracks. I remember this one day we were walking the train tracks, and I remember we would see like Listerine bottles, like these big ass fucking jugs of this mouthwash, just empty bottles under there, man. And it was just cool, like doing this with the police because I got to see a different side of the town and from a different end too, meaning like the side of the law. And I remember when I when I was in these police cars too, I would want everybody to think I was a cop because again, like I was so obsessed with being a police officer, like I wanted people to think I was a cop. It was really fucking weird. It was like in hindsight, maybe it was just me being a kid, kind of immature, but like it was like my dream to be a police officer. And in hindsight, dude, I do not want to be a fucking cop. I want nothing to do with that type of life, man. Like I see how these guys age. I see how these guys' relationships go. I see how people typically see police, and that's a pretty fucked up thankless job, man. You definitely have to have a set of balls on you to be a cop, in my opinion. Even if you don't get any action, like it still takes balls because a lot of people are just gonna not like you. And so I turned about 20. I was about maybe 20 or 21, and I tried out for the Prince William County Police Department. That's like right outside of D.C. That's like 1 county or 2 counties south of D.C. in Virginia. So I go to the testing site, like I schedule the test and everything. I go in there with a bunch of wannabe cops, and I just like as soon as I walk in the room, because I go in there alone, and the room's already full of the fuck are they called? People trying out. What the hell is it called? Trainees, whatever. And I just immediately feel out of place because I get the vibe that these people are actually meant to be police officers, and I'm not. It kind of dawned like my other potentials kind of flashed at me before my eyes. And what I mean by that is like I walk in the room and I see these people, like men. It's like mostly men, of course, but there's some women in there, and I just see how they're, for example, how they're dressed or how their hair's cut even, and how they're sitting, and I can just kind of pick up on their energy. I can kind of pick up on their vibe a bit. I felt like, and I felt like these people were really, really serious about being cops, and like they were probably never smoked pot before, I felt like they never even jerked off or anything. I felt like they were just like a room full of like goodies, like like outstanding citizens of the public or whatever. So I sit down and I do the test. It takes like an hour, it's like a written exam, and I actually do pretty well on the test. I pass it pretty well, and then I do a sit down interview with Detective Scott, and Detective Scott was pretty cool, but. He also had a job to do too. So Detective Scott, he sat me down and he asked me if I had any tattoos. And for this police department, apparently I'm allowed to have 3 tattoos that are visible, but not 4. So at the time I had 4 visible tattoos. I had, what was it? I had 3 on my arm and 1 on my upper chest, which if you guys have like seen my videos on YouTube or whatever, like you guys know I have a big chest tattoo, and if I wear like a police uniform, then you could see it. So apparently I had too many visible tattoos, and then he starts talking to me about tattoo removal. He's like, well, you know what, man, there's been some cops who have come in here who have done well on the test, just like you, Howard, and yeah, that's my last name, Howard, and he's like, they went out and they got their tattoo removed and then they got the job. And I'm like, fuck, all right. So I actually started considering the shit, but I mean, again, in hindsight, that would have been ridiculous because I wouldn't want to have been a cop, especially in fucking Virginia. The place sucks. And so I remember that we have another interview, and this time we do the second interview in his detective police squad car outside of a fucking Food Lion in Virginia. Food Lion is like a local grocery chain, but we do it both assuming that I'm gonna eventually do the tattoo removal, therefore furthering my my application process, just trying to move me further along down the road, so to speak. And he starts asking me about drugs. Now, why he didn't ask me this, my previous drug use beforehand, I don't know. I don't know why we're just now talking about it, but so. I tell him, I mean, he's like, okay, have you ever smoked pot? I'm like, yeah, I've smoked weed. He's like, well, about how many times? And of course, I mean, again, I was maybe like 20 at the time, maybe 19, 20, and I was thinking maybe I had smoked at least, I don't know, a good couple thousand times, easily, a couple thousand. So I was like, I've smoked like 8 or 9 times, sir. I've smoked a few times like at parties. And he was like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's like, have you ever done coke? And I said that I had. I was just being honest with him because I had done coke, and I was just thinking, fuck, if I'm honest, maybe he'll just, appreciate that and respect that. And no, he's like, and as soon as I say I've done it even once, he pretty much just like shuts the book. He's just like, oh, okay, well, that ain't gonna work, man. So, I mean, he literally just completely shifted immediately. So, I mean, that didn't work, and then I was all bummed out. And I remember I still had the vision of being a cop, and I still thought I could make it work, and maybe like for another department. And then within the next year, I ended up living in Atlanta, Georgia, which was a journey in and of itself, just living down there. I'm sure I'll talk more about that at some points throughout the show, but so I tried out for the city of Atlanta PD, like downtown, like not the county, but the actual city of Atlanta. And I remember I go in there, and I go in the tryout room, and everyone's all in their all the police cadets or whatever, little trainees, whatever, they're all in their little suits and everything. And this guy named, what was his name? Detective Brady. He's this really cocky, like, really lame white guy. I fucking can't stand lame white guys like that who think they're being funny. And he's like, more from the peanut gallery. He's like one of those guys. Like he'll crack a joke like that and think he's being funny, man. Like, and everybody was all laughing. Like the trainees were all trying to be on his nuts and everything. Like, it's so funny. And he's got his chin up and his chest out and everything. But like he's got this fucking nasally bitch voice. I hate that guy. I actually did not like that dude. I can't stand cocky motherfuckers who think they're funny like that, but they're just nerds. Anyways, I digress. So I take the written exam. I do okay. And then there's another questionnaire. No, I'm sorry. I didn't take the written exam there. Before the written exam, there's a questionnaire, a questionnaire about drug use and criminal records and shit. And they ask me about drug use, of course, and I just write down that I've used marijuana, and I wrote 1,000x, which, like 1,000 times, and then I wrote plus, which means 1,000 times or more. So they just have a cop walking around just looking at the papers just to look at the numbers that people wrote down, and if it's not the right number, then she's like, okay, well, you don't meet our criteria, sorry. So she looked at my paper and immediately said, you don't meet our criteria, sorry. So I'm like, all right. I walk out, and I kind of knew that I wasn't gonna, I just kind of knew. I mean, like, why the fuck would they take a guy who's done this much drugs before, or at least this much weed before, when they've got all these other people who have it, when they've got people who are connected to the police department politically or financially, all this shit. And dude, I'm so glad I wasn't a cop, man. I mean, like, doing what I've done in my life right now, like move to Cambodia and meet the interesting people I've met, even some shitty people, doing these YouTube videos, doing paintings, just traveling around, man. I could have never done that shit if I was if I would have become a cop. Shit, I could have got shot, man. And plus, I'd be stuck in America. If I was a cop, there's a chance that I might have even killed myself. I mean, I've gone through serious depression since I've been that age. And, another thing too is, like, I even tried to join the military. I believe I talked about that in my first show. They didn't even, like when I tried out for the police departments, they never even asked me about my mental health history or my medical history. And that was a big one too. Like, they probably wouldn't have wanted to give me a gun and had to deal with the public if I've had, had to take lithium and shit. That's something I don't think I talked about on the show. Was like, I used to take a lithium for maybe 5 years, and that's like a mood stabilizer, which, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 and 2 when I was like 13 or 14. I was like 13 or 14. I was diagnosed by several doctors with bipolar. Now, whether or not, I mean, like, they say that, okay, well, you're bipolar, but I don't take medication at this point in my life. I haven't taken any kind of medication whatsoever since I was about, I'd say, 20, maybe 20, maybe even 19 or 20. And so it's been 8 or more years since I've even taken any kind of psychiatric medication. And I feel pretty level-headed. I mean, I don't feel, especially within the last few months even, like, I haven't lost my temper damn near at all. And the reason I was on the shit anyway is because I was a young boy. I was like 13. I used to get bullied. I was frustrated. I didn't have any self-confidence. I got picked on a regular basis, and I was angry. I felt emasculated. I felt like a bitch. I had anger built up inside me, and I remember I was riding with my mom one night. We were heading home from my grandmother's house, and it was just she and I. She was driving, of course. I was just a kid, and she was just asking me what's been on my mind lately, and I was telling her I was, upset, and I just told her that I really felt like, like I wanted to kill people, like at my school. And I even had a list of kids at my school, like just I wrote down that I did want to actually hurt or kill, and there were like a few of them. And I told her, and my mom being the type of person she is, and Mom, if you're listening, sorry, but fuck it. My mom is, I feel like she overreacts a bit. Now, granted, I know it's out of love, so it's all good. Like, it all has good intentions. And she's a mom, so when her son, so when any mother hears their son say something like, I want to kill people at my school, like, she's probably not gonna, I guess I should, be a little more understanding. Like, of course she's not gonna be happy to hear that. And so what happens, what happens over the next few days is I end up seeing a couple of doctors or counselors in this little town I lived in called Front Royal, Virginia. And they're like, oh, so Brayden, you have homicidal thoughts. Have you thought about hurting yourself or other people? When you have these thoughts, do you get sexual feelings as well? So they asked me all this shit, and I was just telling them basically that I'm angry, and that I want to hurt people, and that I want to like mutilate these people, and I was getting all into like serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and all this. Like I started being upset. Like, I guess kind of obsessed, because I guess what happened, I was like 13 at the time, 13 or 14, whatever, fuck, and I had so much pent up anger because I was definitely getting bullied. I was pretty, pudgy. I was, I guess, sexually frustrated, even though I was just a kid. Like, I still wanted to, like, I guess not so much sexually, but, like, I had no confidence with girls at all. Like, no girls liked me whatsoever. And anytime they did, it was always a girl that was super unattractive that I just did not want anything to do with. And, that bothered me, man. Like, it bothered me that I didn't get any kind of female attention or any kind of, like, like no kind of, I don't want to say sexual because I was 13, but, like, you guys know what the fuck I mean. Like, attention from females, whatever. Female attention, fuck yourself. And that, I was getting bullied a lot. I hated school. I was angry as fuck. And yeah, man, I just had like that fuck the world attitude, I guess. And so I saw a couple of doctors, and they concluded that I had bipolar, which, means that I guess I'm manic depressive. And whether or not that's really true, I mean, I personally think that you could say anybody's bipolar. I mean, if you have mood swings, I think anybody has mood swings. So that was another thing about the whole mental health industry that I learned, is like, it's definitely an industry, it's definitely a business, and it was no accident that, it was, I'm gonna say this for y'all, $200 per hour to see a psychiatrist. And the gentleman's name was Dr. Lee, Don Lee in Winchester, Virginia. Hey, Don Lee, if you're listening, $200 an hour, man. Dude, that's a great fucking business model. And it was. I mean, it was a business, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, $200 an hour, man, just to get prescribed pills, for 5 years of my life. Now, this, on the other hand, goes to show how much my family cared, because my parents alone there's no way they could have afforded $200 an hour. And this was, I think it was, I would see this guy, it was either every 2 weeks and sometimes every month. It just depended on what was going on, I guess, in my life. But usually it was like every just once a month, but it was still $200 for the hour. But my grandparents would pay for it on my mother's side. They would pay for it. So it goes to show like that they really did care, I guess, and they really wanted to. Not only did they seem to have some disposable income, but they also fucking cared enough to spend $200 an hour just for me to get this so-called care. But well before that, I remember I went to this it was like the Warren County. Warren County is in Virginia, by the way. It borders like West Virginia. Country as fuck, redneck as fuck, super backwater county in Virginia. And I grew up there for like I want to say about 7 years of my life. I lived there, so man. And it was this place called like the Warren County Health and Safety Center. And there was this guy there, his name was Mike, and he was a counselor. He was like a mental health counselor. And basically his job for the county was to detect whether or not, or decide whether or not somebody was fit to be in society or if they should be in a mental institution for evaluation. So I was basically ordered to go there by another psychiatrist that was in a town a little outside of where I lived. Anyways, basically the questions that he asked me and the answers I gave resulted in me having to have I was like legally mandated to go to a mental institution. And the mental institution was in Falls Church, Virginia. It was called Dominion something like Health, some shit like that. It was called Dominion Hospital or something like that. And the guy was like, so basically, you know, like your parents can take you or the police can take you. So naturally, I wasn't trying to get in a fucking police car. And I don't think my parents wanted that either. That would have been pretty bad for them. So we went home, we got all my shit, and then we ended up driving. It was like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive to Falls Church, which is just outside of DC. So basically we drove from like West Virginia to DC. That's pretty much like where we were. And anyways, so I get to the hospital. It had to have been like 11:30 at night. I mean, it was already like everybody in the hospital was asleep. Like all the patients were asleep. And I go inside, and I'm with my mother and father, and they can only go into the lobby. Like they can't actually go into the hospital. And of course, once we go in, you know, I have to go through security. They have to check everything. They check my fucking mouth. They check my hair. They check my ears. They check, and I'm serious. Like they check my mouth and everything. They check my armpits. They didn't check my ass. Like they didn't do a cavity search. They didn't make me get naked or anything. But they did like pat around the area. But you know, fair enough, I guess. And of course, there were definitely things that I could not bring in. Like you could not bring in like discs, like CDs that you would listen to, because patients would use them. They would like break them in half and break them in ways that they're shaped like knives, and you could cut. They would cut themselves. So CDs were banned. Any type of plastic was banned. Shoelaces, belts. Any kind of like scarf or anything that you could use to potentially hang yourself or strangle somebody with, you couldn't have in there. Which, I mean, like you can still, like you can use your fucking t-shirt, you can use your arms, but I guess they had to do what they could. And you couldn't have any kind of magazines, you couldn't have your own music, you couldn't, there was a lot you couldn't have, of course. Anything that could be used as a weapon, obviously, was prohibited, but... So I go in there, and before I even go to bed, I have to do like a mandatory interrogation session with this guy. His name is Dr. Frank. Dr. Frank is the head psychiatrist of the adolescent department. Because keep in mind, I was 14 at the time, so I was in the adolescent unit, which was anybody from like, there weren't like little kids in there, but the youngest, it was like 12 years old to 18 years old, pretty much. So anyone from like middle school to high school, basically. And so I was one of the younger boys in there, and one of the less fucked up boys. Hold on, let me get some water. Hold on. But I'll get to that in a minute. So I sit down with Dr. Frank, and he has to ask me like the routine questions, like, So do you hear voices? When you go about your daily activities, do you hear voices? Like, no. I'm like, no. I wasn't hearing voices or seeing shit like that, but just asking me stupid shit like, do you get sad sometimes? Yes, I do. It's like, okay, well, he needs this medicine because he gets sad sometimes. Well, do you think about hurting other people sometimes? Yes, I do, sir. Just like we all do. But what this is I quickly realized that this shit is just a business. And this guy, Dr. Frank, made over $50 an hour, which is an insane amount of money to get paid an hour. I mean, granted, the dude's educated and maybe he deserves that much, but still. Anyways, it's a lot of money. But I figured out, like, the more questions that I answered yes to, then that usually resulted in me having to take more medicine. And of course, the more medicine that I had to take, that needed to be paid for by, I don't know, like, who actually paid for the hospital. I'm sure my parents paid some. I think my grandparents probably paid some, and perhaps maybe even there was some kind of like government assistance. I have no idea. So then after the little interrogation, keep in mind it's like 12:30 in the morning. The beginning of my day, I went to this county public safety center. I was told I had to go to a hospital. I was driven there. Now I'm there. It's like 12:30 in the morning. I just got interrogated, asking if I get sad sometimes, or if I hear fucking voices or see faces in the wall. And then I go into my room, and I'll never forget this, man. It was a very eerie feeling. So I go into the room, and it's, of course, like the lights are out, but you can see the lights outside, like the street lights, and they're like this bright orange color. So the inside of the room is like illuminated with this light orange, just like this light orange tint to everything. So everything has like a very interesting vibe to it. Like just the way the colors were, and the fact that it was nighttime, and the window was like this cheap plastic, like reinforced looking window, so it looked like you couldn't break it or something. It almost looked, it was like not bulletproof, but it wasn't a regular window. You could tell it was made of plastic as well, and it was thicker, so it was hard to break. And that kind of made me just a little bit like, oh man, like this is real, man. Like this is a real fucking hospital, man. This is for people. It's like people can't get out of here. And so the dude to my left, his name was Brian Nischwander. I'll never forget this fucking guy. Brian Nischwander. Now, granted, I didn't end up meeting him till the next day. Well, so let me just back up here. So I go in my room. I fucking put all my stuff away. I'm trying to be quiet, not to wake up the other boys. And like I probably get a couple hours of sleep that night. I remember every single day it was like 6:30 or 7 a.m. They would just come and turn the fucking lights on, wake everybody up, doors open. You had like 20 minutes to get ready to go to the cafeteria for breakfast. So I go down there for breakfast, and I'm just sitting with all the other guys, and it's maybe like 8 to 10 other boys who are adolescent, like between 12 and 18, which is a pretty big difference. Like the difference between 12 years old and 18 years old is pretty major, whereas like the difference between 30 and 36 isn't really that big. But the difference between like prepubescent boys and then boys who have already like hit puberty and past puberty, like it was a pretty interesting dynamic with all the people there. So I start getting to know all the people at the hospital, and a lot of these boys most of them are from the DC area. Like I'm one of the few kids there from the country, and actually this other boy there who was a roommate of mine, who was the kid to my right, he was the guy he was in the right side bed. I had the middle bed in the room. His name was Michael Banzel, and he actually went to my school in Front Royal, Virginia. So I knew this kid. I had no idea that this guy was in a fucking hospital too. A small world, right? Because like we went to the same damn school. Now, granted, he was in special ed. He had some learning disabilities, but he had his own set of issues. Like he used to pull his dick out in school sometimes and show it to the girls, and naturally that wasn't cool. He would like go up to the girls saying like, I want to put my sperm on you. And he really talked like that, and that's what he would say. And it would, like, the girls would laugh and stuff, but you could tell that it made them super uncomfortable, and they would tell on him. And then he eventually got, I guess, mandated to go there too. And he was also there because of like anger issues and stuff, but nonetheless, he was a weird motherfucker. And a lot of the boys there, like I said, were from that DC area. Some of them were like Latino boys, and they were involved in some of the local gangs. And the DC area has a lot of Latino gangs as well. That's something a lot of people don't seem to realize. Is like sometimes when people think DC, they think like black gangs, because DC is known for the black population. But just outside the city is a huge like El Salvadorian, Mexican, Guatemalan populations, Honduran, all that type of stuff. And no, don't get me wrong, most Latinos are good people. I mean, of course, like most of them come here like come here. I'm in Cambodia. What the fuck am I talking about? Most of them come here. A lot of them go to America. Most of them go there to do good. They want to work. They want to give money to their family. And I totally don't fucking blame them at all. In fact, I think it's fine. I just feel like the American system is not set up for that. But if it was, then I think that they could make it beneficial. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that now. So, what the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, so some of these boys, though, were involved in some of the gangs there. Like MS-13 is one of the biggest Latino gangs in that area. MS-13 is La Mera Salvatrucha, and that's an El Salvadorian gang. They're pretty much like the most feared gang like ever. Like they're one of the most feared street gangs, at least. And I remember there were some accounts in that area where there'd be like machete attacks, because for the initiation to get into MS-13, often you need to do some pretty heinous shit. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm not saying it's always the case, but that there were like stories like some of these boys, they wanted to get the gang, and the deal was they had to go up on the street to somebody, to either an opposing gang member or just even a totally innocent person, because you have to prove like that you're cold-blooded as fuck and that you don't give a fuck about killing somebody. So if you can kill a total stranger in broad daylight for no reason other than just to do it with a machete, then you're worthy of being in the gang. So like, you've got to be a hardcore motherfucker to do that, man. Like, real talk. That's some seriously fucked up shit. Yeah, so there was that, and I was there with one of them, and I remember I was calling. There's this boy. He was this. Forget where his family was from. Like he was from Virginia, but his family, I want to say, was either El Salvadorian or they were Mexican. I totally forget, but either way, it doesn't matter. His name was Juan, and he was alright. He was alright, dude. But I remember one time we were all sitting down. I was playing spades with him. This is like just like fucking prison, by the way. We were all sitting down playing spades and shit, talking about pussy and fucking fighting and stuff. It was me, two black dudes. His name was James, and the other dude's name was Dante, and they were both in there. They were actually really cool fucking dudes. Like most of the guys in there were actually really cool, but I'll talk about that. It was me, James, Dante, and then Juan, and he was a Latino dude. And we were sitting around playing spades, and I don't know what happens, but like we all just kind of started joking with each other, and for whatever reason, I was joking around with this kid named Juan, and I called him Chico. I just thought it was funny because, like, or not really funny, but like Chico is like a guy. That's like a word that they would say maybe for guy or like dude or whatever. I was like, hey, Chico, whatever. And I thought, because I had said that to a couple Latino friends I had before, and they thought it was like, they just thought it was funny or whatever. I thought I was just being cool with the guy, just being funny. And he gets all serious, man. He's like, don't call me Chico, man. And I was like, whoa, shit, okay, sorry, dude. But it also kind of pissed me off that he got mad. I'm like, man, the motherfucker is not going to snap at me like that. Fuck you, dude. And then I said something like, why don't you want me to call you Chico? And I didn't even call him Chico. I just said, why don't you want me to say that to you? And like, he stands up, and then immediately I stand up too, because I'm like, shit, this guy's going to hit me. I better get ready to defend myself or something. And anyways, he doesn't hit me, but he gets like really upset, man. I'm like, I can see that he's genuinely upset, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't but what is the problem though? I don't understand why you get so upset. And he sits down, and he doesn't get sad, but he just kind of like calms down. He's like, He's like, sorry, man. He apologized to me for getting so upset because I didn't know. But apparently this dude named Chico like murdered his dad. His dad got murdered by this guy named Chico. That's what he apparently. So that's why I pissed him off. But anyways, so there was that, and I remember these guys that I was in there with. A lot of them were not violent dudes. Like, they were in there for drugs. Even this kid Juan, who he almost kicked my ass. He was in there because his mother found a pocket knife. His mom found that he had a Swiss Army knife and turned him in to the police because she is freaked out that her son was like in a gang, like he had a knife because he's in a gang and wanted to hurt people or whatever. So that wasn't the case, I guess. But most of the guys I was in there with were in there for drugs, for pills, for weed or whatever. But they were just kids, so they got sent there. And just looking back, I just find that like the rehabilitation methods that they took there were like very cheap and outdated. Like, for this hospital and how much people had to pay to go there, and thousands of dollars just for like a week to stay there. They would show us some of these movies, like these. I remember they showed us this film one time. It was about like what to do if somebody at your school talks about shooting up the school. It's like what to do if there's a shooter in your school, and what to do if you hear that somebody in the school wants to shoot up, like what precautions to take, like what procedure you must follow in order to execute this task. And it was like this 1985 like Technicolor fucking rinky-dink bullshit. And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, this is what 2000, what was it, 2003, 2004, and good technology out there, very expensive hospital, people paying lots of money, the doctors making $50 an hour. Like, they could have had better technology. They could have given us better food. That was another thing, man. They're giving us some bullshit ass food too, man. Dude, that place sucked. It was literally like a prison. But I will actually, but they tried to make it kind of like school as well. Like, we even had to take school classes. I remember that. I had to take like English and history. My favorite thing to do there, though, was of course the art class. I remember a couple of times we went down to the art room, and people could paint pictures or do drawings or even sculpture. But what I like to do is I like to take these masks. They were like the white, just like plaster mask, and you could paint it how you wanted to. And I remember I was actually able to take them home with me, and I kept them for years after I got out of the hospital. I kept these masks with me, and it was really fucking cool to have those, man, because that was a really interesting point in my life, like being with those types of people. And oh yeah, I didn't talk about my roommates. The boy to my left, his name was Brian Nischwander, and I remember he was a cutter. And from his neck to his toes, like his back, his sides, his torso, everything, it was like literally riddled with cuts. And before he got into the hospital, he said he would just use like a razor blade, of course, or knives, or he would even poke himself with needles. And naturally I asked him, was like, dude, why do you do that? What the fuck are you doing to your body, man? And his whole thing was just what a lot of cutters say, like, I do it to relieve pain. And which obviously, when you think about it, seems like super counterproductive. Like, why would you cut yourself and make yourself bleed to relieve pain? But apparently some people legitimately get a relieving sensation from doing it, like bloodletting. I don't know what it is. Really crazy. I've personally never tried cutting myself, like on purpose. I couldn't get myself to do it. I don't get it, but that's what he was about. So naturally, he couldn't have razor blades in the fucking place. So when we would go to the cafeteria, he would take these little plastic forks and he would sneak those back. And I never told on him or anything. It was never my place or it was never in my interest to snitch on anybody, to tell anybody. So let's just be clear, everybody. I ain't a fucking snitch. I know snitches get stitches. I don't want stitches, so I'm not snitching, man. he would take that shit into his room, or to our room rather, and we would just start talking about music. We would start talking about other people in the hospital, about our families or whatever, and he would just start taking that fucking fork and sticking it into his leg, sticking it into his thigh, or his arm or whatever, and just breaking the skin. And the fork wasn't super sharp, so he was like having to dig at it, and I remember I could just see his skin going in and like pressing downwards, and he was just not even fazed by it, man. I'm like, dude, I don't want to fight this guy. I'm not going to be able to hurt the motherfucker, man. And then the dude to my left, Michael Banzel, the boy with learning disabilities, I remember when I actually got out of the hospital, I saw him again at school, like at my actual school. It's called Warren County Junior High School. I saw him, and like I was so terrified that he was going to tell everybody. That he saw me there, but I guess it really doesn't matter at this point, like everybody knows now. But yeah, man, so I definitely got an eye-opening look, a big, like very, very interesting look at the mental health industry, the mental health business. And I'm sure some people listening have maybe experienced the same shit. So UFC 207 is coming up, guys. It's coming up this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss it. I normally get to see the fights live on Fox Sport 1. On Fox Sports 1 here, but I'm going to be going to Koh Rong, as I said, this weekend with a couple of ladies. And it should be a pretty interesting experience, man. I know Ronda Rousey's coming back. She's fighting Amanda Nunes. Now, I don't know about you all listening. I'm personally an Amanda Nunes fan. Now, she's a Brazilian fighter. She's bantamweight, which is like 135 pounds, and she beat Miesha Tate for the belt. Ronda Rousey is coming back. I have never been... Now, don't get me wrong. Ronda Rousey is a fucking animal. She's an amazing martial artist and fighter, but I just never, I guess, got into the female fighting. I mean, I have more recently, and I do like Amanda Nunes. I like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, but of course, and I like a few others, and I like Michelle Waterson, dude. She's fucking sexy as hell, and she's hot, yeah, and she's good. But Ronda Rousey, I just never liked her attitude. I never thought she was really that hot either, and I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but then again, I don't even have to say this shit. Like, it's kind of all unnecessary, but basically, let's just say that I'm pulling for Nunes. I'm not saying I want Rousey to get hurt. I'm not saying I want her to get brain damage, but I would like to see Nunes win because I just like her attitude better, man. I think she's a sweetheart, and I think she's a fucking animal in there. Now, granted, so is Rousey, but I just can't stand how she's such a cunt to so many of her opponents. And granted, she backs it up, but it's like she loses once, and in a pretty brutal fashion. She got fucking neck kicked, pretty bad knockout, and then she quits, and then she goes on fucking Ellen and talks about wanting to kill herself and blah 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 blah. And wants to be all wants to be like that about it. So I'm not really pulling for Rousey too heavily. And then the other event is Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz, and that's for the bantamweight belt, for the bantamweight men's division. And Cody Garbrandt is undefeated. He's pretty much knocked out everybody he's fought. He's a dude from Ohio, but he's been training with like Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber and all of them in Sacramento, California. He's fighting Dominic Cruz, who's a legend in the sport, dominant champion for a long time. And Dominic Cruz is definitely a lot older, but way more experienced, way more well-versed in fighting. But Cody Garbrandt's got that one-touch knockout power, and so it's going to be exciting, man. It kind of sucks I'm going to miss it, but I'm also going to have a pretty badass experience on the island. I'm hoping, I'll make some new friends, I'll meet some new people. I'll make some videos for No Joe Coward and all that. Let me see here. I'm at about 55 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap the show up. Give a couple shout outs here. I want to give a shout out again to Primo Sounds. I appreciate Primo Sounds having my show on the air. I appreciate you guys taking the slot, I guess, for me to talk shit for an hour. I appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to Cloud Bar that's here on Street 9 in Phnom Penh, and I just want to say that I'm having an art exhibition scheduled for February of 2017. I'm going to do it there. I'm going to take some of my artwork there. I'm going to try to sell it. I'm going to try to get my name out there, promote myself, plug my shit. And I was actually offered to do it by the owner of the Cloud Bar, so that's pretty sweet to know. So definitely check out Cloud Bar. They're always having pretty cool events here in town, like block parties and art shows and things like that. The issue is like it's kind of hard to find, I guess, for a lot of people, but it's actually in a pretty good location, and it's a place that I think needs a little bit more business. And I'm not saying that it's not a nice place. I'm saying that it's a cool place to hang out, but not enough people know where it is. So definitely check out Cloud Bar in Street 9. It's like on Street 312 and Street 9. Check it out in Phnom Penh, guys. I want to give a shout out to AVI LSD on YouTube. Gentleman by the name of Michael Cholowitz. He actually made this video compilation for my channel called No Joe Coward, and he took like all these bits he thought were funny that I did and made like this compilation, like this mashup of me. And he actually wants to do a little bit of collaboration. So shout out to Michael Cholowitz. Probably do some collaborations with him in the future. So check out AVI LSD on YouTube. It's a dude like with he usually has like a headband on, like a tie-dye headband on with like really long hair, glasses. He looks like a pretty cool guy. Definitely looks like he likes to party. And a couple of plugs. I'm going to be doing a nerd night, which is again, like I said, a rapid fire presentation. I'm going to be talking about the time I did not sleep for 7 days. I'm going to be speaking about that. January 9th, I believe the date is. It's either the 9th or 19th. God, I'm so unprofessional. I don't even know the dates. Anyways, guys, pleasure speaking to you. This is the B-Hole, episode number 5, and I'll be coming out in a couple days here with episode number 6. And again, if you guys want to email me with any kind of fan questions or any shit like that, it's going to be the B-Hole Show at gmail.com. That's the letter B, whole show at gmail.com. All right, y'all. Peace.